Yeah. So why are we here? What are we doing?
I don't know. I should be asking you that because I mean,
Why should you be asking me?
this is the first time we're doing this, and I was caught off guard when I was asked to come to this.
Who asked you? Like that's not me. Like I was also caught off guard when I was asked.
I think there was like a creative director that is not here. It's not present right now. You should be asking him that question, but I mean, since it's not here, let's just do what we have to do.
Okay. So I'm Taiwo, creative director at Exom, and
Yeah, I'm Seth, story artist at Exxon.
so I hear we have some questions, like frequently asked questions.
Oh, we actually have loads of them. One thing the audience would like to know is, how has the journey been so far in the animation industry?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think we've been here for how long? How many years now?
I think 8 years.
Yeah, just about that. Yeah, and it's been interesting. Like I think it's challenging, but at the same time, you get to understand like it's like a life journey. It's like what you set out to do, not like some side project,
Yeah,
not something you do before you do the other thing.
of course not.
Right. And then if you see it that way, then you're able to like enjoy the journey as opposed to like complain about every single thing. I think from the onset, we knew what we were getting into, but we didn't know just how deep we would have to get.
I think for me the experience was quite different because I came in as I think 2020, and then I could still remember, I could still picture the day I came into the studio, and there was pounded yam already waiting for me to, you understand. So I wouldn't say that defined the journey for me because there were like highs and lows. There are times when you have to like grind your teeth, learn stuff, you get. But overall, it's been a pretty awesome journey actually. Yeah, more good than
Any regrets?
Not really. I mean,
Why was it not really? Like, why you hesitating?
no,
Like,
because I mean, this pays my bills, so I can't be regretting right now. Yeah, it does.
That's okay. I think that's the important thing. Like, when you got into doing this, like when you first started thinking of being an artist, getting into animation, like, there's the idea that, like you can't make money as an artist.
Yes. I always had that doubt. And I had this FOMO, fear of missing out as well. So it was kind of contrasting. What if I don't join, or what if I don't do this, and then it ends up being something big, and then this thing will not really pay you from the onset. I had that, but I still had to go with my guts. My guts was like, "Yeah, you're an animator, just go for it." And I went for it.
That's really interesting. I'm sure like there are people on the other side of that spectrum that like maybe they may not have had like maybe a support system or like the confidence to like pick up and go.
Yes.
But then for you all that like they have like family.
The support system was kind of dicey. My mom and my dad, they would always ask questions, but they would want to actually give you the support as at when due. It might not really be financial or whatnot, but at least just come. So long as you come home and you are alive, and then you tell them, "Oh, I'm still breathing fine in spite of anything," they are ready to give you that support. So yeah, there were times when the doubt was actually from me and not from them, but they just kept me going. They kept pushing me to be better at whatever it is I do. And,
would you say like if you're talking to someone else starting today, will you tell them to like take the plunge? Or just get a degree and get the job?
Well, it's different right now because if it was me 4 years back or 5 years back, I would have just been like, just take that leap. But seeing some like there are nuances in the game that's in animation or in the industry that I would not really just push somebody or try to like convince. But I'll just tell them, if it's what your heart yearns, don't expect too much. Just go with the flow. Yeah. Unlike when I would just be like, "Oh, you want to? Please come in." Yeah. So I've actually experienced certain things that I would not just push people. I would just give them a word of advice. Are you ready to go the distance? Because it's actually a journey.
Yeah, I think that's a very important insight because at the end of the day, it always comes like the positives and the negatives. Like you can't isolate one from the other. Some people got in and have had to be they've had to do this by themselves.
Yes.
Right. And then in your case, probably you had like a bunch of
other community, yes,
around you. Was that like, the relationship, the community, like do you find it, because at the end of it, sometimes like artists can tend to be very like introverted.
Yes.
And then you have to like work with everybody, and everybody's looking at
most of the time we want to be isolated, we want to do our own thing. But when you remember that the pipeline is not just a one person thing, it's not a one man field. You know, you have different players, different people that would actually make up your team. You just have to, you know, suck it all in, even if you're not a team player. When you know that, okay, this is the end result, this is what I'm hoping to achieve, you have to just learn how to be a people person. You know, you have to learn how to blend with the crowd. You know, you have to learn how to, you know, have that people skill. For me, I'm more of a loner, but for some reason, I just find myself, you know, interacting with people every day, and, you know, doing this often. They've become more, you know, brethren to me than just colleagues or acquaintances. So I feel like if you find yourself in a place where I did find myself, you will just blend in, because
Yeah.
everybody is, you know, friendly. Everybody is trying to, you know, see that you get the best of whatever it is you hope to achieve as a person. You know.
So you kind of like have a shell.
Yes.
Instead of like fully coming out of the shell, you just make the shell bigger.
Bigger, yes, accommodate everybody.
More people.
Exactly.
You mentioned
Yeah.
pipeline.
Yes.
Yeah, but before I get to that point, right? Has your ego ever been bruised? Like, you know, because now there's an idea that, like, you know what you're doing in your own discipline, but then when you're working with someone else and they're like, no, and then you kind of have to like, yeah, what are you telling me? Like, this is my thing, and then how do you deal with it?
Of course, I'm a human being. I would not lie. That okay, I would lie sometimes.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. Yes, my ego has been bruised once, you know, one too many times actually. But it's how I have been able to move past it or move on from it. You get, because there are times when people will call your competency to question, call your age to question, your maturity to question. Yes, and then you want
age.
yes, and you want to show them that, see, I senior you with like how many years. You have to do it like this, or but when you realize that when you're in a place like this, or in a community where everybody's like, you know, creative, like they are sound with their skills and everything, you have to understand that, oh, this is where I drop my, you know, everything I am at the door. You understand? And let my skills speak for me. Because if somebody else is able to recognize that, oh, this guy is a master at his craft, they will surely respect you. So unlike trying to force the respect or force the fear and all that stuff, it doesn't work like that.
I think that's not interesting, because even with the community that we grew into, like our community, like we're very like respect based. Like there's a whole lot of like, I'm older than you, I'm your senior, and yeah, address me as sir, ma, and all those things.
Yes.
And then you kind of have like learn to put that to one side.
Yes.
To work with other people.
Yes. Because I respect everybody that has actually walked through our doors. Like, I respect them to a fault, not because of their age, but because of what they're able to bring to the table. You understand? Like, our previous projects is not just one person handling everything. You have like different people coming together, and when you see what we're able to like achieve with those collective, like the number of people that are able to work on it, you find out that at the end of the day, you're as good as them. They are as good as you. So let that just be the foundation for the respect or whatever it is. You know, like no ego. Like once you don't have the ego, like it won't bruise it. It won't be bruised. That's just how.
Yeah, I think that that brings us back to the pipeline, right? It's like, in the end, you get into animation thinking like, you know, I'm just going to like launch Blender and then you know, model a cube, then a donut, and then after that, you know,
that was what we were thinking when we were starting out. Like,
yeah, and then now, well, you aren't particularly a 3D artist, so like you do 3D, but
I've had to learn 3D because it's not just a one way. It's not a one way conversation again. Like, you have to know what the next person is doing, so that for you to be able to better do your own job, you understand, so that it will be easier for the next person.
So there is a generalist versus specialist conversation. Right? Like,
yes.
Will you say a generalist?
Not really a generalist like that, but I know what the next person after myself, or the next 2-3 persons after myself is supposed to do. So I will just do my own thing to suit, to make it easier for them to be able to work.
Yeah.
So, what's like the best thing you feel like we've achieved, you know, in our 8 years of existence?
I think the answer is not as conventional as like most people would expect.
Okay.
You know, I think the best thing we've achieved was actually working together. I found that, like, at the end of the day, working on animation, on any creative endeavor by itself, like, really challenging, right?
Mm-hmm.
So modeling is hard, animation is hard,
Yeah.
texturing is hard.
Yeah.
And then when you put all that together, you end up with like a body of work that hopefully like you guys are all like proud of.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that is really underrated, underestimated, is just figuring out how to even work together,
Yes.
especially in like, again, the cultural like communities that we grew up in. And it's one of those questions that when people ask, oh, can we do animation at this scale? It's not really a question of whether the skills are there alone, but a question of like, can we actually work together, right? Because I find that we're very, very individualistic in our thinking.
Yeah,
You
our
know,
approach
we
to
grew up with a very low trust in a low trust environment. Like your parents will tell you not to trust the next person.
Yes,
like
yes.
once your wife gets pregnant, everybody is supposed to know.
Yeah.
When if you're supposed to like travel
Travel
abroad,
out, yes.
everybody's supposed to know. So you grew up with that sense of like distrust or at least skepticism towards
Yes.
the next person.
Yes.
And in some vocations, like it's a little more straightforward because your job, you know, you can actually calculate the KPIs or whatever it is. But in this case, like someone has to put their emotions into something and hope that the next person is going to take just as much care. And that when you're giving feedback, which happens all the time, that there is no ill intention.
Yes, yes.
You know, the like
there is understanding
that what this person is saying, you're not saying it because you're angry with
trying
me.
to attack the next person. Yes,
exactly. So I think the most impressive thing I would say is actually us being able to like figure out how to work together, right? And then you have an environment where people have that, you know, genuine trust for the next person's part of the process.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I think that would be it.
Okay. And this ties into like the managerial question because, you know, being in your position, I know you've had to like manage, you know, the creatives at exams. Like, how has that been? How has that been actually? Candidly answer that question.
I do like this. Honestly, it's made me like humble in many ways.
Okay.
Right? It's like when you work with, say, if you work with people that are doing the exact same thing as you, you can kind of see through what they are doing and then, you know, explain why they're not getting it right or how to do it better. But then when you have to work with someone or people who literally think differently, because like the mode of even executing, let's say, a storyboard is very, very different from how you do simulation, for example, right? And so both people operate different. It's very different from how we are brought up to even go through school. You know, when you're in school, everybody's, you know, graded on the exact same topics, subjects. There's a science class, art class, technical class. And so you are like, everybody's like, see, it's either you do it this way, you do it that way. But working in this environment, you kind of have to make sure that like there is a creative, right? And that it works well with technical, right? And then it works well with business, right? Because somehow you need to figure out how to balance all this. You can't get too creative that then you forget like the, you know, business and the bottom line of things. And you can't get too technical, forgetting that like, you know, people actually need to use these tools to work. So I think working with like creative people or like with people generally, because I would say everybody generally is creative, right? Maybe we were fortunate enough to have the opportunity to actually do what we're doing, right? But I just find that like it puts you in a space or in an environment where you tend to like look at people and not expect them to learn things the way everybody learns it or to execute things the way everybody does. So it makes you just take a step back, like kind of let people do their thing. Sometimes there's like a lot of anxiety in like, you know, this thing that, you know, these guys want to do is going to take so much time, and you know that like the resources aren't like there to see it through, but you have to now figure out whether to tell them that, hey, like let's shut this down, or let's, you know, let's just go figure out in the background how we keep this thing alive. right?
Yeah.
So I think there is that sense of like admiration, respect for, the fact that some people will take what we're doing, but at the end of the day, it still makes you just learn to respect what God has created in us humans and how we're different.
Yeah, that's interesting. With what you've said now, there's just this burning question. So when you scroll through our CS, in our comment sections on our socials, people are always, maybe when they watch something we put out there, they're always like, when are you guys going to do this? When are you guys going to do this? And by these, I mean a feature length animation.
Yeah.
Is that a possibility for you?
Yes, a feature length animation is a possibility. Okay. That's the short answer.
Give us more. When is it coming? Is there something in the pipeline?
Well, I can tell you it's not coming. It's not coming today.
Okay.
It's not coming this year.
Okay.
It's not coming next year, right? I think, again, what's being in the industry and like kind of learning everything from first principles has taught us is that it literally takes a village to make, in fact, any piece of work, right? It's possible for one person to do like a short film, like there's no questions around it, but it's like, okay, so once you're done with the short film, then what happens next? Right? Or that, like, would you burn yourself out through like 3-4 months of doing that, and then in the 5th month you don't have any stamina left? Or who goes to figure out, like, how do you balance doing that with making a living? So it's kind of a setup where someone or some people have to be doing the creative work, and then someone or some people have to go figure out like how to make money off of that thing, right? So on the one hand, while it definitely sounds like really interesting and like a passionate thing to do, to whether create a film or a feature length film, there is still the economics of doing that, right? And until you can make a business case out of any film, you'd want to be very careful about venturing into that. So that's just on like the financial side of things. Then there is like, well, the skill. So you could have like one really good artist, and then you could have like 5 good artists that come together, and once they become like 5, you then have to first of all manage like ego. Right? First you have to manage ego, and then if you figure out like, okay, yeah, everybody can work together now, then you have to figure out like, okay, how many more people do we need? Do we need more people, right, to do this? So there's a general problem of like concentration of skill. Right? I think it's like one of the biggest issues that we have. So if you look at a place like China, they have a lot of artists, or like, some of the more developed industries like Japan. Some of these places have like art schools where people actually go study like animation, and then they go to one studio, do some internship, come back. But we don't have any of that.
Yes, we don't.
Right? So even if someone has had the brocos, if I use the term, to go learn animation, when you now put them in a team with other people, they need people to match their energy. Right? And then you now need to make sure you can scale this up to like 20, 50, 100 people. And I think that's a question that is like, being answered every other year, right? Right now, we have a lot more people at a substantial level of skill compared to like years before. But the only thing holding back, say, making a feature film or, whatever, that looks like, would be making a business case out of it. You have to be very intentional about planning, the possibilities of that.
Okay, that's interesting. So we've actually been on this particular project, even though we're not dropping a feature-length movie anytime soon. We've been working on this project for, I think, 3 years now. That has just refused to, But I feel like each step of the way we are learning something new. And I would say I'm confident, but not 100% confident. But I would say I'm confident that if we touch that project right now, it's going to be something amazing. Right? And you know the project I'm talking about? Meiji.
That project.
Exactly. Meiji. I have to say it. So what's cooking? When are we starting that project?
is it a question of when are we starting or when are we
Sorry,
continuing?
when are we continuing that project?
Because it's like
When are we
I
continuing
think
that project?
a lot of studios would actually um be able to even resonate with the idea that look,
Yeah,
everybody gets into
animation,
animation
and then they
with like
pause.
with like the intentions of we want to make this really beautiful film, but then the reality of like sometimes you have to keep the lights on, so you have to go do some commercial work, and then sometimes you realize that the skill
Yeah.
or the resources aren't there, so
Mhm.
it takes this time. But then let's even really really take a look at like, okay, what's the reality? Pixar was like 10 years, about 10 years. It took them about 10 years before they made their first feature film. Like before Toy Story, they made Teen Toy, which was
Yeah.
like a short film, and then they made Toy Story, and they made it around toys, because one of the more difficult things to do then was to like render human skin,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
So
yes,
there's
yes.
the idea that like, okay, you want to tell a story, you have like an imagination, and then sometimes it's like maybe some stars have to line up
Mm.
for everything to actually come
Yeah.
in place.
Yeah.
But and then with films like, I think was it Avatar, the Avatar Part One,
Okay.
James Cameron, where like
Okay.
it took I don't know how many years for sometimes you have to build the
Yes, the
technology
CGIs and
to
stuff.
make the film,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's one thing that we have gotten comfortable with. The idea that like you start to do something, this is not even a function of like willpower or
Mhm.
like prayers, because once you get into it, you have to face the fact that like there's a lot of other people whose heads have to be in the same space.
Yeah.
Those people have like bills to pay, and then you have to like sit down together and decide, when should we start, when should we pause. But ultimately, right, um it's part of the journey. And then there's the idea that like, okay, you pick it up every other time you pick it up, it's easier to do.
Yes, yes.
It's easier
yes,
to do.
yes.
So the last run we had, I think, was maybe sequence 5, where we did like
Yeah.
there were like 6 shots, and it took us like a year
Yeah.
to work on.
I remember.
Yeah,
I think the lighting went into like December. Like they were still as
Yeah.
at December, they were still doing the light. I was like,
yeah.
It's
We had
crazy,
this counter from like January, and like we just decided like, this year we're not doing any client work. We're just going to focus on this, and it's like, yeah. And then we spent like maybe the first 2 months
on just trying to solidify the story.
Exactly.
While the modeling and the lights was doing, like it was a crazy run. It was a
Yeah.
crazy run. But I feel like now that we are picking it up again, the confidence like is is extra. It's
Extra
it's in the
confidence.
tank, yeah. Once they
Yeah.
actually push
Well,
it.
we'll see how it goes. I think the idea is like, once you do the first one, it's a lot easier,
Yeah.
because you figure out like more of the technicalities, the economics around it, and all that. So that's largely like our focus, in the coming months, to really get back into it. And there were no promises there. It's like sometimes you could just have a client that comes in with like really really nice offer,
Yeah, very juicy offer.
right?
Like, we can't
And
refuse.
like, should I sell my soul? Yeah, but we'll see how it goes.
I think it's a passion project for me. I want to actually see it come to screens, like people to actually see this story, because I mean, yeah, I did the storyboarding and the likes, but I can tell you for free that the story is just making sense. If you have watched Titanic, you would want to watch this one.
Are you dishing spoilers?
No, I'm just
Because I can infer from what you're saying.
I'm just
Yeah, let's leave it at that.
Let's just leave it at that. No spoilers.
Yeah.
While this project is ongoing, that's the major project. We plan to actually carry the audience along. Is that something we will still want to do? Like show them the behind the scenes and whatnot.
Yeah, I think we can do that.
We can do that, right?
Yeah, if we don't get too carried away, right? It's kind of like a balance, because it's so much distraction. There's sometimes, but you have to like be intentional. So we'll see how it goes. The idea is like, if we can keep, do maybe like some behind the scenes, and then if people have questions around like the process and everything, why not like
reach out,
kind of like building in the open. right?
Yes, yes, yes.
But yeah, maybe we'll hold DJ responsible for that.
Yeah, you spoke about scaling up and getting more hands to work on the project. Is there a way we are looking to get these hands, or are we planning to bring everybody into the studio and have them work on the
Yeah.
project?
Yeah, that's a good one. Honestly, when you look at some of these videos of like Pixar and Disney and the likes, like they do like a tour of their studio and
Yes.
their premises, and it just looks so nice.
Yeah, it
It would be
does.
so nice to like have everyone in the same place, and then you're surrounded by like-minded people every day. And I think one of the interesting things that happened during COVID was the idea that everybody felt like it would be nice to work at home alone by themselves.
Remotely, yes.
And then when that happened, everybody felt like, look, this is too much quietness.
Yeah.
Right. But again, artists being the kind of independent that we are, you kind of now have to like strike a balance.
Okay.
So what I've found is that some people do definitely like being, in the midst of other people. And some people really enjoy just being, by themselves.
Okay.
But with respect to so if we even have solved the problem of like scale, let's say there's so many people, you still have to consider the logistics of them moving from point A to point B, right? And then if they are going to be working, remotely, then how do they solve the power problem or the internet problem on their own at home? Especially because then you're moving heavy files across, these teams. So that's one of the very first realities that hit us.
Okay.
Is that because we're doing 3D animation, you're having to move textures and files. And so we felt like, okay, on one hand, we have a studio space, we can't accommodate 100 people in the same place, right? But then we have to, even within the studio, we have to build a system or a pipeline that makes people able to work together.
File sharing, seamless.
Exactly. So then you start thinking of collaboration, right? And then you do some research, and then we came upon version control, things like Subversion, Git, and then at some point we ended up having to build our own tools to facilitate this, right? And it was very, very wonky early on because you're using Python scripts, bundling things together. And then, but because we made a little bit of progress, so it was this process of you start doing something, you build some tools to help make it work better, and then the tool breaks, then you go back, then you learn from that to improve the tool. So at some point, we would realize that other studios also have the same problem, right? But then because you can't possibly manage add-ons and tools for every studio, we felt like, why don't we build a solution that works for us as well as for other people, right? And that's why we started building Cluster, right? So the idea with Cluster then is, what if there was a piece of software for your creative work? On the one hand, it would easily facilitate moving files between one artist and the other, whether they're on premise or working remotely. And then on the other hand, if you have a number of other studios using Cluster as well, everyone is connected to the kind of the same pool of artists, right? So we every once in a while, every studio will have an application come in to say, hey, we want to work at X, Y, and Z studio. And then everybody kind of has a Google form where you go, and then maybe anybody remembers or doesn't remember. And then sometimes the studio is looking for an artist that does ABC, right? And because all that talent could be going to waste, we felt like, okay, let's build this platform, first of all, to facilitate work within the studio. And then for other artists, whether the ones that are coming into the industry or the ones that already exist in the industry, they sign up on the platform, and they're able to set up their profiles. And then whenever a studio is looking for artists to work on whatever projects, they easily look up that directory and then get
interesting
artists. So again, because we're really at the beginning stages of what this industry is supposed to look like, there really is a few hands, there are not too many, right? Some people know some people, but there's some really great artists somewhere in the corner of Kaduna or something, right? And it would be nice if from where they are, they can work with any studio, right? You don't necessarily have to be in one studio. You could work with a studio on a contract for 3 months, and then you book an appointment with another
Yes,
studio for the
studio.
next 6 months.
Interesting.
That way, like the artists and the studios are getting the best of like each other.
Each other.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
All this has been quite a lovely chat.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed every bit of it. All right, with that, I think we've come to the end of our chat. I mean, we have to go back to work, right?
It's been a great chat. Thumbs up to the camera crew.
Yeah.
Manuel, Deji, Jospu.
Yeah, Okwe is in here and Gideon for setting up the whole.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
See you around.
Yeah, you too. Yeah.